Yes, ma'am. You can start.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Today's speaker, as you all know, is Dr. Anshu, and I think all of us know her quite well. But still, as a formality, let me introduce her to you formally. She is the Director Professor of Pathology at Mahatma Gandhi Institute of Medical Sciences, Sevagram. And she has been a very active member of medical education unit in India overall as such. Dr. Anshu is a pathologist and a medical educator. She has been awarded many fellowships, starting with Commonwealth Fellowship for the academic staff in 2007, then CMCL FAMA Fellowship in 2007, same year again. After that, she got a FAMA Institute Fellowship from Philadelphia in 2009 and DBT Clinical Fellowship in Genetics and Genetics Diagnostics in 2021. She also was awarded international fellowship from FAMA IFMI Fellowship in 2012, and that allowed her to complete her MHP from Maastricht University, which she completed with distinction. She was the president of AHP for 2022, and before that, I think she was also a member secretary for AHP for 2 years. Before that, she is on the board of directors of Network Towards the Unity of Health Southeast Asia representative from 2023. She is the coordinator of the medical education unit as well as the internal quality assurance cell at her institution. She has been a faculty for all the 4 FAMR institutes in India, that's in CMC, Ludhiana, Mumbai, Coimbatore, and Manipal. And she has also been a global faculty with expertise in educational methods, assessment, and quality assurance at the FAMR Institute, Philadelphia. She has several publications to her credit, both in medical education and in pathology. She has edited a book along with Dr. Tejinder Singh. We are all familiar with the book, The Assessment in Medical Education, which is in the 2nd edition. She has contributed more than 30 chapters to the books on different themes. And what is very interesting is that she is really a creative writer and writes excellent blogs. Other than her medical education interest, her interest lies in shopping, which everywhere she goes, she does that. And she has a collection of saris, which she has written in her blogs, which I think all ladies and men also should read. That is Anshu for you. Anshu, the stage is yours now.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for that very creative introduction, I should say. And if you can stop sharing, I can.
Yeah, I will stop. Give me a minute. Yeah.
At the outset, I'd like to thank the MEU India panel, which chose me for this very prestigious oration. Let me start sharing my screen. Are you able to see the full screen now?
Yeah.
So this oration is special because it is in the name of someone I place very highly, Dr. Rita Sood, or Rita ma'am, as we used to know her. We've spent some very special moments with Dr. Rita, and if I remember her for something, it will be that she has always been an epitome of grace. Um, my first connection with her came in 2007 when I joined as a FAMER fellow at Ludhiana, and she was the faculty. Subsequently, I went to London to do my Commonwealth Fellowship, and uh, when I think of it now, it's really generous of her. But she was organizing NCME, as it was called then in 2007, and she took the trouble of calling me in London to invite me for the conference. I regret that this is the only NCHP or NCME which I could not attend. But that was Dr. Rita for you. She would go out of the way to make you feel wanted. And I've spent some special times with her when we've discussed more than medical education. And I know that she was always was a clinician with a heart. And she would talk about how uh, her postgraduates used to be needed to be more responsible, how she would lose her cool if somebody misbehaved with the patient or didn't behave properly. And she was looking forward to retiring and being with her children. So it came quite as a bit of a shock to us. This is her last visit to Sevagram, and when she had come here for a global conference, and it is later when I talked to her, the astute clinician that she was, she noticed that she had some neurological symptoms when she was in Sevagram, and she rushed back, and we all know that she had the brain tumor. So we've lost a person too early, but even though she's gone, she's made a place in the medical education firmament and in all our hearts. So I'd like to acknowledge that she's made a great contribution to us, and she's also the founder president at the AHP. So this topic, which I chose, is close to my heart, and I'd like to talk today on the joy of learning. When I chose this topic, I first decided to talk to some students, and I talked to students from high school rather than medical school, because if you look at learning, uh, the way a student learns from school is how the person goes on, and that those experiences color their experiences in medical school as well. So I'm just putting across some of the thoughts which came across from this bright group of students. The first thing which I heard repeatedly was that we can study on our own. We learn better from YouTube at our own pace. Um, so I think from them, I realized that they are not at all looking forward to attending lectures or classes in school, because everybody seems to be have their favorite YouTube sites. And unlike all of us, they all listen to videos at 2x speed. Uh, then I asked them if they actually needed school, and they said, where I actually need a teacher is to clarify my doubts when I'm stuck. So they're very clear in their mind that they can read on their own. But when I need help, I need a teacher. So I asked them what they did. And apparently, there are apps these days where if you enter the subject and the chapter, they will instantly put you in across to a teacher who's an expert in the subject. And this is for something as low as around 700 for 3 months or something. So there is a teacher available online. This facility is available to them right in school. And I was just wondering whether teachers in school are passive. Uh, the other thing I heard was that I enjoy learning when I'm allowed to explore new ideas. But at school, they make me cram for the exam. I don't like it when teachers teach for the exam instead of making a topic exciting. And they gave me specific examples. They're like, there are teachers who will come to the class and tell us to open our textbooks. They read line to line, and then they will say, this will come in the exam, that will come in the exam. And they say it kills our pleasure of learning from teaching. The other complaint they had was, why are mobile phones banned in schools when we learn best from our phones? This generation always is on Google. They don't even type. They always speak on Google and get their answers. Um, these are people who uh, are on the phone, and it's not just for fun. I actually went and talked to their principal saying that, why have you banned mobile phones, at least in the higher classes where they actually need it? When they say whenever there's a free period, we want to be on our phones. And the principal said, no, they are going to be on Facebook and WhatsApp, and I don't want that. But when I genuinely look at the students who were keen on learning, they said they were wasting their time in the school without their mobile phones. But I asked them, do you really want to go to school? And they said, yes, I want to go to school because I like interacting with my friends. And that's my break from the grueling schedule that I have. And the last thing was, they didn't mind periodic examination. They didn't mind regular examinations. They said it kept them, they knew where they stood in class because of that. But they said that this pressure from competitive exams, whether it's NEET or JEE, was just too stressful. So from this conversation with high school students, you can be sure that technology is actually shaping how students learn. And we as teachers cannot be left behind. Technology is something which has which shrinks the world. You are sitting in a small village like I am today in Sevagram. I do not feel isolated. I am now a global citizen, and so is every student here. There is opportunity for personalized learning. The way material is presented with technology increases curiosity. You can provide them transformed learning experiences using technology appropriately. It boosts your efficiency and productivity, whether you're a student or a teacher. It allows collaborative learning in so many diverse ways. It allows one to explore things in depth. So you can see the advantages of technology in teaching right from school. It's not even in medical college. So I was going to, I'd actually typed this title as Changing Role of the Teachers, but I realized that the role of the teacher has already changed. So we need to move from this side of the picture to this side, which means a teacher is no longer required as an information provider. You are not required to deliver information at all. There are technology, AI, your apps, internet, everything provides them that information. Your role has completely changed now to be an enabler of learning. You're a facilitator, you're a mentor, you're a guide, you're a coach, all of those, but you are certainly not somebody who's expected to deliver information. So this concept that we have in class, that one has to take so many lectures and we count the number of lectures or the number of hours, is completely obsolete for this generation of learners. One size fits all doesn't quite work now. What is required is personalized teaching, where you give individualized feedback and individualized inputs to students who are very diverse from each other. And when I talk about this personalized learning, one must question, can we do this with the limited number of faculty that we have today? Are there ways to get around this by using residents? And are there other ways of doing it? Can technology help over here, even for giving personalized teaching? Obviously, blackboard teaching is not the only way, and we need to learn ourselves to adapt and include technology. It's time we broke down the rigid walls of our structures and systems, and we learned to design transforming learning experiences. Now, the National Education Association of the USA talks about 4 C's. They say initially we used to have the 3 R's, which is reading, writing, and arithmetic. That is no longer the competency which the new learners require. They require the 4 C's, which are communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity. And the new education policy, which came out in 2020, also talks about these 4 C's. To these 4 C's, I'd like to add another C of my own, which is choice. And let me discuss this in this oration. Let me talk about all of these points one by one. So what I'm going to do now is to see what is the research evidence we have on how learning works, which is the science of learning. And next, how can we use each of these research-based principles to help people learn, which is the science of teaching. I went back to this group of students and asked them, when is learning fun? And the answers that I got were, when I love what I do, then it's fun. When I have the choice to decide what to learn, then it's fun. When I'm allowed to learn at my own pace, when I can immediately apply what I learn, then I enjoy it. When we go from basic to complex, and when support is available when I need it, then I enjoy learning. When the environment is safe to fail, that's when I enjoy learning. When I learn with a group of equally excited learners, learning becomes fun. And last, when my achievements are appreciated, I really appreciate it. So you can see that these youngsters are very clear in their mind of what they need. I'd like to talk about something which most of you are familiar with, which is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. According to Maslow, the students will not achieve their full potential until their basic needs are fulfilled. And these basic needs are their physiological needs, their safety needs, the psychological needs like belongingness, the esteem needs, and only when all these basic needs are fulfilled do they go to the top of this pyramid. And although Maslow called this a theory of human motivation, one must be clear that this is not research, this is just a philosophy, but it's philosophy which can help us, which means, and I've structured my oration in such a way that whenever you see this green line, it means you can apply it in your educational practice. So using this Maslow's theory, it is important that we establish a conducive educational environment, which means that if a student is going to be hungry or sleepy, has not slept the whole night because he's been studying all night, or is tired, they are not possibly going to be attentive in your classroom. They're not going to be learning. And if they are not comfortable, if you think of the temperature of the classroom, or you think of there are no washrooms available, so the physical environment becomes important. Next comes the emotional environment. If you are in a classroom where you are going to be ragged, if you're scared of your seniors, if you're anxious about being asked questions or being humiliated in class or ridiculed, obviously they are not going to look beyond that emotional needs. The safety needs come first. Next is the level of belongingness. Does the student feel accepted in class? Does he have friends he can get along with? That makes a huge difference to the social circle and to the learner. Also, is he individually respected, appreciated? Does he feel confident? All this affect the esteem needs. And only when all these levels are complete, will the student try to improve themselves, try to achieve one's full potential, and try to excel. So these are principles, even though this is not educational research as such, there is lots to learn, and there are lots of implications for us when we design our classrooms. Now, coming to another philosophy, which was given by Malcolm Knowles, and he didn't call it the adult learning theory that we all talk about. He called it some observations or assumptions about adult learning. So Malcolm Knowles came up with 4 assumptions first. The first was is about self-concept, that adults become more self-directed as they mature. The second was that adults bring a wealth of experience to the learning process. The third is the readiness to learn, where adults want to learn things that help them accomplish relevant tasks. And then adults want to see immediate application of their learning. To these 4, he later added 2 more, which is the motivation to learn, where adults rely on internal rather than external motivation, and the relevance. They need to know why they need to learn something. Now, Malcolm Knowles' assumptions or theory was not accepted. It went for a huge criticism. Again, because all this is empirical evidence. And so he had to go on the back foot And he said that there is no big difference between andragogy and pedagogy, and they're both parts of the same spectrum. He went on to say that yes, adults or children can be treated in the same way at different times. So depending upon the readiness of the learner, you can treat them differently. He actually went on to change his theory and called it a model of assumptions about learning because of all the backlash that he received. However, even though this is not research, there are some things I would like to focus on today, and these are relevance. I would like to look at the immediate application of their learning, and then I'll go on and talk about the self-directed learning principles. The implications for educational practice. Now, it's important that learners must know why they are learning something. I'd like to share a personal story. One of my brothers, my youngest brother, he decided to drop out of school. Now, this is, it wasn't because he was bad at studies. He was a good student. He's very sharp and certainly the most creative of all three of us. But he's just decided in the 11th standard that he would no longer go to school. At that time, it was very difficult for us as a family, more so because my father was the principal of the school. And, you know, the usual log kya kahenge kind of thing, that the principal's son is not going to school. He was very determined that I will not, this system doesn't work for me, and nobody could change him. So we met a week ago at we took a vacation, and I asked him, why did he do it again? This is something which happened 30 years ago, but I asked him, do you regret it? And he said, no. I said, why did he do this? He said that school wasn't teaching me anything different. What I learned in 8th was the same in 12th, and I had no clue why they were making me cram the periodic table. I don't know why I had to learn Sanskrit. And all I wanted to do was to repair or create my cards. So he's the kind of person who can open any gadget, and he gets into trouble all the time. As a child, I know he opened up the television set because he wanted to see what was inside it. So he's doing well. I mean, he's doing all the self-directed learning possible. But again, the question, why are we learning something is never been explained to him. So it's important here that you realize that knowledge must be delivered in a context, and learners are looking for immediate application. And that is why we emphasize that whenever you're teaching medicine, especially in year 1, it's important to let learners know the applied aspect of where they're going to be applying this knowledge. And this new concept of early clinical exposure, which is common, helps us design sessions which can make learners aware of why they need to learn cram biochemistry or molecules or physiology cycles, each of these. Now, I like this quotation which says that the ultimate goal of the education system is to shift to the individual the burden of pursuing his own education. Now, what is important here is that we are going to be with our medical students for a limited span of time. Now, the moment after 5 years, they are going to exit from medical school, they are going to be on their own. And you know, the turnaround time of this medical knowledge is very short, and students will have to be lifelong learners and learn on their own. So it's important that we shift the onus of learning to the learners rather than spoon feed them. Again, it was Malcolm Knowles who talked about the 5 components of the self-directed learning process. And these are diagnosing the learning. The learner needs to diagnose their learning needs. They need to be able to formulate their own learning goals. They need to identify their human and material resources to achieve these learning goals. And they need to choose and implement learning strategies and evaluate these learning outcomes. To these 5, Sargent et al. Said that in the medical field, because you need to be lifelong learners, you need to be willing to self-direct your own learning. So these are the components of SDL, which I think all of you are familiar with. Now, what is the role of the teacher in promoting SDL? And SDL is certainly not about sitting in a classroom for 2 hours. SDL is much more than that. So the implications for educational practice are that you need to have an individual connect with the learner, preferably have a one-to-one conversation with them, provide them constructive personalized feedback, create accountability, tell them what are the learning outcomes they need to do and what they are responsible for, and help them to formulate or frame their own learning goals. Now, it's important for us here to pace the learning and set deadlines, but always remember that this could end up being adverse if you're going to add too much pressure. For a self-directed learner to function well, things have to go at the pace which they can cope with. And one of the jobs of a teacher here is to teach students to rely more on external assessments than on self-assessment. So these are things that we need to use in our classrooms. There are several strategies to promote SDL in classroom and online settings. There are also strategies to promote SDL in clinics and the community settings. And we've written about this in detail in our paper in Indian Pediatrics, which came out in 2022. I would direct you to this if you want to read more about this. But some of the strategies that can be used to promote self-directed learning are problem-based learning. Flipped classrooms are an excellent method. And given what I heard from the students in high school, it is great if you ask students to take responsibility, learn on their own, and use that valuable classroom time to solve their doubts, clarify their concepts, and help them to reach a deeper level of learning and not be on the surface. Knowledge maps help. Reciprocal teaching, where they learn from each other, helps. This is a student doctor method, I think, should come in as quickly as possible to all medical colleges, because this is going to help them to take responsibility in the clinical field and learn in a longitudinal manner through and learn the practical aspects. So as long as things are in theory, it tends to be boring, but this is going to be wonderful when it comes in and is practiced properly. Of course, we've just talked about technology enhanced learning. It can reduce your work as a teacher. You can make your videos and you don't have to take lectures and regurgitate the same thing which is there in the textbook. Rather, use the classroom time or use self-directed, self-paced modules to provide individualized feedback, and technology helps in doing that. Group projects, whether you do it in the clinics, in the community, or in the classrooms, are an excellent way of promoting SDL and making students learn all the skills required for it. Learning contracts are an excellent way, and we have given examples of this in this paper. Please go back and have a look at this. And of course, now we are talking about reflection and reflective practice. And the logbooks eventually will need to change into good portfolios. So these are different methods. At Sevagram, which is a community-oriented school, we have this excellent village adoption scheme, which has now become mandatory for the rest of the colleges. And we have been taking students here since the first year. So they go here, they talk to the villagers, they learn how to communicate right from the beginning, and they realize the context in which they will work. And it's not about theory. And here you are seeing a group of students learning how to chlorinate wells. So what you learn in practice is something that they appreciate much more than what you learn from textbooks. So there is this paper which talks about the factors which contribute to most effective self-directed learning outcomes. And they say wherever there is social interaction. So rather than promoting individual learning, you need to have students in group, allowing them to collaborate. Problem-based learning helps. Point of care learning helps. And helping the student to address the appropriate learning objectives helps. Guided self-assessment, you can use technology for this. Reflection, blended learning, and use of technology again. So all of these are factors which help you to achieve the outcomes, SDL outcomes, most effectively. As much as I like the sound of my own voice and I love taking lectures, lectures are not the ideal way for this present generation of students. And if you are going to crib about attendance, you know that they are not getting anything out of the lectures. If you know our students here, They have already subscribed to apps, very expensive apps, where they get all videos, all the notes, everything. They've already gone through it. They have self-paced modules with them. They have test material with them. And this lecture isn't helping them. What will help them are these small group methods. And there's a whole cafeteria choice for you of what methods you want here. The thing to do is you must be creative enough to design these interactions, design the tasks which students will find interesting, give them different contexts in which they can apply their knowledge, respect them for what they are doing, appreciate them, and let them learn from each other. This will require definitely more work than using lecture notes or PowerPoints which you have prepared 10 years ago. Because every time you will have to design a new session, and this cannot be done with less faculty. So if you want us to actually uh, do something which to bring the students back to the classrooms, you will have to change not just this physical environment where students are sitting in rigid rows here like this. We need to make classrooms more interactive, more open, more adjustable, and they will enjoy it really. The social learning theory says that individuals construct shared knowledge and understanding through their work together. So the more activities we give them, either as teaching, learning experiences, or as assessment, group projects will also be there. Both of these will help them construct the shared knowledge, and they will enjoy coming back to the classrooms. Now, there are several factors which affect learning. And these can be classified as the learner characteristics, the learning environment, and the learning processes. Now, when you talk about the learner characteristics, um, every learner has their own values, they have their own perceived needs, and they come with their individual goals. Also, they have certain beliefs about their own capabilities. One of them is called the forethought capability, where a student whether he believes that he can do some task. The other one is vicarious capability. When he sees somebody doing something, then he feels that, yes, I too can do it. And there is also the intrinsic motivation to pursue. So why are they in medicine? Do they want to become doctors, or have they been forced to do medicine by their parents? That also makes a difference to the learner characteristics, to the way students learn. When you come to the learning environment, it's important for them to feel safe. Um, is your learning environment conducive to actually allowing you to be questioned? Are they humiliated in class? Are they appreciated? How open are you as a teacher? Do you give them feedback? And that is the single most important factor which affects learning. The extrinsic motivation, the rewards which come, and the appreciation which come is something which makes the learning environment more conducive to learning. When you come to the learning processes, the pace of learning is important. Are you going according to the level of the learner? Are you going from basic to complex? Are you able to integrate what the student has learned in 1 year with the next level? Also is how much are you supporting them? How much are you challenging them? And I'll talk more about this here. How do you model things which can be done? That's where your skills lab come in handy, your demonstrations come in handy. How much practice are you giving them? When they are doing something hands-on, they are going to enjoy learning more. And of course, they have to do it with their friends, with their other students. So collaboration is important. All these factors make a huge difference to how students learn. Now, coming back to this uh, model given by Dalloz on support versus challenge. And they talk on this axis, you can see the low challenge and the high challenge. And on the y-axis, you can see high support and low support. If you do not challenge this learner, you don't have very high expectations from them, and you don't support them as well, it leads to apathy. They feel alienated, isolated. They avoid anything new, and it leads to a low morale. If, on the other hand, you give them support, high support, you spoon feed them, and you don't give them anything challenging to do, this cozy, complacent environment is very boring for them. They feel frustrated, and they end up being underachievers. if you give them high challenges but don't support them enough, they end up being very anxious because they're not sure whether they can achieve this challenge. There is fear of failure, and there is a low morale. When you have high support and high challenge, this is the place where students grow. Feel empowered. Their expectations are high from the teachers. They try to achieve high standards. They want to make you happy. They are willing to take risks. And as teachers, you have to be tolerant of allowing them to fail. And all of this is the place where you want to be. And I love the example Dr. Tejinder gives about flying a kite, where he says, as a teacher, you must know when to uh, tighten the string and when to make it loose, depending upon the individual learner. So this is an important part of how much support versus how much challenge. And remember that this is going to be different for each student. It depends upon the student's past experience. If the student has been a self-directed learner, even in school, he will find your spoon feeding very boring. On the other hand, if the student has come from a school which is not very good, where he has been cramming all life, any high challenge will become very difficult for the student to cope with. So it is important for us to remember this, because in a classroom, every learner is individually different. And you will have to use diverse methods to actually teach, to assess them, and to take everybody on board. This is a picture which went viral in 2015. This is a picture of a 10th standard exam being conducted in a school in northern India. And these are the parents of these children who are climbing up the walls and trying to help them cheat. So this became a meme which was laughed at. This looks ridiculous. This looks laughable. But if you look at what is going on beneath the structure, it is that our exam system is extremely competitive. And there are these schools, you can look from the structure of the school, which is not, where the students will not be able to compete because there is no equity. So these are methods which people use when they can't compete and the competition is not fair. So when you look at our systems, we are not encouraging collaboration. What we are encouraging is intense competition. And I'm not sure that is the right way for our systems to behave. And if you think this is happening only in schools, you are wrong. This is the same thing which is happening in your medical education. And this is the competition that we see this is not just this year, it happens every year, where this intense competitiveness to get into medicine is so killing that it kills the joy of learning. So you have students right from 8th standard getting into coaching classes, spending sleepless nights, burning the midnight oil, and I'm not sure that is the best way to learn. I was just talking to somebody, as one of my nieces is trying to get into medicine. I was trying to get a list of books which the students use these days. And the first thing they said was, ma'am, you need to buy this app, which is 1.5 lakhs, which is essential for medical students. And I said, why? We never use this. They said that, yes, if she wants to get into NEET PG, she will, I'm not naming the app, I think you all know about it, that you need these kind of coaching classes. So what are we helping the system do? Are we preparing our students for a life of tests or for the test of life? Is this the right way to go about it? I think we need to start thinking about the system that we are creating. It's not the fault of the students. It is a system that we have created where the pressure is so much, where they have to resort to all of these techniques. And something needs to be done to change the system, to completely rehaul it, to make learning a joyful place. Coming to one of the last C's here, which is critical thinking. Here, it's important that we let students question what they learn. We need to get students to the why and the how of things. So make them compare evidence, make them evaluate claims, let them critique literature, push them towards deep learning. Surface learning, cramming is not going to help them at all. What kind of doctors are we going to do we expect them to turn into? Um, if you look at it, will this generation, which is cramming MCQs, produce even one doctor which can think laterally, which can create an amazing biomedical device, uh, which can be recorded in history? What are we producing here? So we need to teach them in different clinical contexts, train them in decision making and clinical reasoning, and give them opportunities to innovate. Teaching to the test is not taking us anywhere. And from Corona, the generations of students which are coming out of, I'm scared to say, and I'm sad to say that these are not the kind of doctors that we want in this country. So the implications for educational practice, yes, go into problem-based learning and higher order learning. The questions, the assessment needs to change completely, where you ask them scenario-based questions, higher order questions, patient management problems, teach in the clinical context, and avoid cramming. I mean, yes, you have needs asking higher order questions, which is good, but again, they are putting all their eggs into one basket, where students will not come back to your clinics because they are busy with that one examination, which is killing for them. Creativity is one of the C's which has been emphasized both by our national education policy, and there is this lovely story that I heard somewhere where they found a little girl drawing something, and the teacher came up to her and said, "What are you drawing?" And she said, "I'm drawing God." And the teacher was surprised and said, "But nobody has seen God. Nobody knows what God looks like. So how can you draw God?" And she said, "Yes, they will know in a minute once I finish drawing." So this is the kind of imagination that students have. And there is this saying which says that the creative adult is the child who survived. Every child is born with curiosity. Every child is born with creativity. And our schools are stifling their creativity. I like Ken Robinson's quotation that we do not grow into creativity. Schools make us grow out of it. So even in medical school, this is what is happening at the moment, and something urgently needs to be done so that we don't kill the curiosity and the creativity of our learners. There is this big controversy, big group of people who believe that schools have begun to work like assembly line productions. When you think of it, schools started during the Industrial Revolution. And suddenly, when they saw that factories had a system where you produced a product which is identical, they realized that they needed workers with some skills, and that's when schools were started. And they have this. We have now this system where students get into school at a particular age, believing that age is the best way to classify students. There is no research which says that students of different ages can go into the same school. But what we are doing is we are producing an assembly line product of students, and then just testing, the assessment is like quality control of the factories. Remember that this is the exactly same thing we are doing in medical school, where creativity, discipline, intelligence all go for a full toss, and you end up with creating identical, boring assembly line productions of students. Our education system in the medical college, thanks to the kind of system we have, plus our regulatory bodies, is stifling. We are choking in this system where you are expecting every medical college to produce the same identical kind of graduates. We need some creativity, some flexibility to allow different colleges to explore different ways of learning. There is no one correct way of learning. So counting the number of hours, counting how many competencies you have achieved, counting the number of hours that you spent in the clinics for, these are not things to be judged by a regulatory body. Yes, they can look at the number, what outcomes have been achieved, but just like there are several ways to reach the same God, there can be several pathways to reach the same outcome. And that flexibility, unless it comes back, the joy of learning will no longer be in medical schools. Sorry if I'm sounding too critical. Coming to the C, which I like most, which is the matter of choice. The new education policy lists a number of guiding principles, and one of them, and one of the important ones, is saying flexibility for the learner. How much flexibility are we giving our learners? Yes, the electives have come in here, but besides the electives, we have cramped the space for the learners. And now, slowly, you expect them to give a certain amount of attendance. And I'm not sure attending schools 75% is the solution to proper learning. Why can't they sit at home and give the exams and come for the clinical part of it? Why can't we think differently here? There is this Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligence, where he says intelligence is not a single thing. There can be different kinds of intelligences. Now, in school, we used to think only about verbal, we emphasize more on verbal linguistic or logistic mathematical intelligences, but there are several other forms of intelligences, like your intrapersonal or interpersonal intelligence, where you know how to, where you know your own strengths and where you know how to work with other people. There is the visual spatial intelligence, there is musical intelligence, there is bodily kinesthetic. Now, every person is a combination of different intelligences. And it's important that when we teach, we look at two things, which is individuation and pluralization. By individualization, it posits that because each person differs from each other, there is no logical reason to teach and assess students identically. This, of course, means a huge overhaul in the system. But why not? Why can we not think laterally? The second is pluralization, which says that topics and skills should be taught in more than one way because it activates an individual's multiple intelligences. So the more restrictive you are, it's going to kill all these intelligences, and we need to think differently, think out of the box of how we can retain the joy of learning. I would like to talk about my best learning experience. And I did my master's in health professions education at Maastricht University, and I was above 40 when I did this. School should have been very difficult for me at this age, because you say as you grow older, learning becomes more difficult. I'll tell you what happened. We had this group of students. When we went to Maastricht, on the first 2 or 3 days, we were told about the objectives of the course. We were told what our expectations were from each of the learners. We were allowed to interact with our group of colleagues here. And then they gave me a timetable. It's the first time I saw a timetable like that. It was really surprising. Except for the first 2 or 3 days where we had to interact, the timetable said that you had to come to school for around 2 hours or 3 hours per day. But it was not like you come in the morning and go back. It was somewhere in the middle. So maybe they call you at 10 o'clock and the next class is at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock. So you can't possibly go back. You are in the college. So there was lots of room for self-study. And they gave us assignments with deadlines, which meant these are not just individual assignments, they were group assignments. So this time which we had for self-study, we were allowed to go and sit with our group and design those assignments. We also had the choice of asking for a key to a certain room, which had an LCD projector, which had a whiteboard, where you could sit and discuss. And the library had soundproof chambers where you could sit and discuss things. So the learning environment was beautiful. And I wish I could go back to learning again. I wouldn't mind at whatever age to go back there. So this is a timetable where you had to meet your mentor. You had time to, which has lots of space for self-learning there. Now, even when the assignments came to us, we had choices in the assignment. I can tell you that there were 3 different scenarios, and you could choose the scenario which suited you best. You had to read the same amount of references and submit your assignment, but the outcomes can be achieved by several ways. So you chose what you felt most comfortable with your experience. We had a lot of group work, and this group work was not just offline, it was also online, and it was challenging, where people came from 3 different countries and 3 different time settings, but we did that. There were mentors available, and we had special slots telling us at what time we could contact the mentor. They were available always online for an activity. There was access to all library resources, digital resources. The cafeteria was great. It was next to the library, and you could, eat and read as much as you want. And the best part, which I liked about Maastricht, was that there was no final examination. Each unit was assessed, and we got marks out of it. All these marks were compiled, and the final result was given. There was no special, you learn at the end of 5 years and give one stressful examination. Every day you had to study. So this was an example of assessment as learning. So I don't see why something like that cannot be implemented, why that freedom of choice cannot be given to the students. And yes, this freedom of choice should be there for teachers as well, for institutions as well, because they also have to create that kind of conducive environment. There is no one fixed way to teach well, where you say so many hours of lectures or so many hours of small group teaching. You can achieve the same outcome by using different methods, and you can make it as variable for every student. When I come to the national education policy, it outlines a whole list of different problems with higher education. And two of them are limited teacher autonomy and limited institutional autonomy. I would like to talk about these in detail. When you say that a teacher has to make learning joyful, you have to give them freedom. You have to have enough number of students. If you look at the present system, the regulatory bodies are too prescriptive and too restrictive. You have cameras all over the place. There is no trust. And as long as there is going to be no trust and no freedom for the teacher to innovate, you are not going to get the best out of your teachers. If you look at our faculty development programs, I agree it's been a great thing that everybody has to go through the basic course. But the present format, where the same faculty are being called back again and again to refresh their knowledge, is completely ridiculous. I'm saying it's ridiculous because the nodal centers are overworked, and the same faculty are being asked, the people who already know are being asked to repeat the programs, and the people who need training do not have any slots for those workshops. Now, I don't see why this can be changed, where faculty who have done the basic course can now be asked to show how they have improved by attending another conference or a workshop in an area which they like. Why can't they show their educational research work? Why can't they show their publications and show that they have been doing something in this? So why restrict it to repeating the basic course or the advanced course again and again, and making the system so restrictive that it kills the joy of teaching? Again, coming to the limited institutional autonomy, the environment now is choking us. So there are 700 different medical schools, and if you leave them free, you will get some role models who will do excellent work. I agree that there will be some who will not do work, but what you need is the freedom to innovate. That freedom is missing. It's stifling our creativity. The number of show cause notices which are coming, it stunts our quest to excel. And I read the national education policy clearly, and it says that a light but tight regulatory framework to ensure integrity, transparency, and resource efficiency of the educational system through audit and public disclosure is what they're recommending, while encouraging innovation and out-of-the-box ideas through autonomy, good governance, and empowerment. Our system is hardly following this light but tight regulatory framework, and it's time we spoke up, and time the people in authority listened to us and trusted us. Without trust, this whole system is going nowhere. So these were the 5 essential 21st century skills for learners. And I would like to add one more, which is connect. What we often forget is that learning has an emotional aspect, and this is often under-recognized. Students will learn will learn better if they feel that relationship with the teacher. So how do we create that emotional connect? We need to dedicate time for personal interaction with students. We need to create a conducive and safe educational environment for learners to feel secure and cared for. They need to be given constructive feedback. And this dialogue I hear from all of them, that these students are not willing to learn, they're useless. And this students are hearing from us each day. There will be, unless you have empathy for them, unless you understand their perspective, unless you trust them, they will not rise to your expectations. If you lower your expectations like this, you are killing the joy of learning. One of my most favorite shows is MasterChef Australia, and not just because I'm a foodie. I love the way these judges mentor the learners. And some of them, if you haven't watched the show, please do. They allow learners to discover their own strengths and weaknesses. And the feedback is always positive, always constructive. Even when there is the participant is flawed, they give feedback on how to improve. There is scaffolding. The tasks that they are given are creative and interesting. They move from simple to complex. They teach them skills. They show them how to do things. They provide them challenges, and some of them are the team challenges. They value the teamwork and the peer interaction. So even if there is somebody who's individually very good, if they are not a team player, they will not proceed ahead. And they also allow time for reflection. There is much to learn from the show and the way the judges behave here. One of the other things which I am now completely addicted to is this app called Duolingo. I don't know how many of you have used it. So this is an app to learn language. Now, this uses the gamification technique. And what they do is they ask you to do a 5-minute lesson each day of whichever language you want to use. Now, these are practical conversations. So if you had to do learn French, for example, how would you go to the airport? How would they talk? How would you introduce yourself? Things like that. Now, the moment you start doing these lessons, they start giving you rewards, and they call them XPs, which are experience points, and they double the scores. So if you're doing things regularly, the scores increase, and the lessons go from basic to complex. There are some things called streaks. Streaks are how many days did you learn in a row? And I'm telling you, it's so addictive that now I'm on my 650th day without a break. So the principles of learning here, they use the principle of spaced repetition, where what you learned 1 month ago will suddenly appear in your assessment, and then they allow you to refresh it. The AI, which is there with this, will tell you what your weak points are, and you're questioned in your weaknesses again and again. They use different things. There is speaking tests, there are hearing tests, there are writing tests. And as you go from basic to complex, they will start asking you to describe something. So there are milestones, there are daily tasks, there is instant individualized feedback given by AI, there are practice sessions. And then there are badges, there are challenges. Along with it, there are community of learners. Everybody who's in that app can choose learners they want to be with. There are leagues to compete. But this is just one app I'm talking about. We need to embrace technology, and this kind of apps can easily be made if you know what you want to do. You use a bit of creativity, and all this is really possible. So I would like to end by saying that learning is something which never exhausts the mind. Learning is always fun. But if our systems continue to stifle learning, I'm sorry to say that we are not in the right place, and something needs to be done as soon as possible to bring back the joy of learning into our classrooms. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anshu. It was an excellent presentation. I mean, really enjoyed, and we are really honored to have you with us. And on behalf of MEU India and all the members, we are honored to present to you the Rita Sood Memorial Oration.
Thank you very much,
We
Sanjay.
are very honored. I mean, this lecture was there on, will be there on YouTube in about 5 minutes. And anyone who has, you can share it with your friends, with everyone. I mean, it is something, a great message for all of you. Thank you, Dr. Anshu.
Thank you so much, Sanjay.
Since it's an oration, we don't have questions, but I'm sure many would be asking you offline. Thank you.